All right. Well, welcome back to the Rally Report podcast. We'll get straight into business today, into the rundown. Start off by kind of grazing over the British Junior Open. Don't want to go too deep into it because honestly, I'm a bit turned off from watching it. But I think Squash Radio do a fantastic job in their recent episode covering that. And I think the reasons they mention in their episode kind of sum up my sentiments toward the event and watching that event. But anyway, my thoughts on it. Felt a little bit conflicted about this year's British. On one hand, I thought it was incredibly neat to see these new names, especially the under 19s, to fight out for the title. Incredible quality semifinals and finals throughout. I thought it really shows the depth in these draws, incredible fightbacks and storylines from it. Great to see the rise of U.S. Juniors and also continued dominance from Egypt. But on the other hand, I find it hard to tune into these big junior events when you know the top names of junior players aren't going to be even participating in it. And I guess we're in an odd time where the very top kids of Zakaria or Mina Orfi are too dominant. And it doesn't make, any sense for them to be playing, any other event other than probably World Juniors because they're so busy playing the PSA circuit. But I just thought that the tournament lost some prestige due to the lack of name value. And it's a bit scary to see that the pinnacle of junior events outside of World Juniors, doesn't carry the weight. And I'm not just talking about them too, but we know Marwan Asal, who had just won the US Junior Open. He didn't play in the British. Farouz, incredible quality player, already in the top 15, didn't play on the girls' side. Nor did Na Jiyoung, the runner-up of the World Juniors, or any of one of those Korean boys, who all seem to be incredible top quality, as seen with the World Juniors, this past year. So would love to know why they opted not to play. But that's just my 2 cents on why I wasn't as excited as previous years. Cause usually the British is a great spot to see, to build excitement for the next World Juniors and kind of see where every single one of these, top juniors stand. But it just didn't have the same type of punch to it like it usually does. And on a side note, I'll refrain from talking about the US Junior Open because they make you pay to watch the live stream. And I find that to be diabolical. And all right, so outside of juniors, we're about to kick into full gear into the second half of the season, and thought this would be a good time for me to kind of just throw out some very brief but bold predictions for the year. If you guys want to hear more of these, even though I have no credibility of any of this, let me know. But hey, why not, right? So starting with, I feel like I have high hopes for this player every year, but Joel Macon, I think he's going to crack into the top 4 spot this season, or by the end of the season, or maybe the end of the year, as long as he stays healthy. I think outside of Farag and Asal, I think he really can beat everyone. And yes, I mean by that, I think he can get enough wins over Paul Cole and Diego Elias throughout the rest of the season. Ali Abu, I think he'll be the next one to crack into the top 10. I know Yusuf Solomon just cracked into it, but yeah, I think Ali Abu's the next name. I just think his game has shown to be both clinical to low ranked players and also threatens the top players as seen with the first half of the season. And finally, Amina Orfi. I think she's going to end the season at worst 5 and at best 4. And I know that's not much room for error, but I really do think she has what it takes. She's really one of the only few that's really shown me that's really being able to break into the dominant big 3 on the women's side while also being able to beat everyone else quite convincingly on the bottom of the ladder, on the rankings. But yeah, there you have it. That's the rundown for today, and on to today's interview with a guest I've been wanting to have on for quite a long time, George Parker. And we got one of my favorite players on tour, and George, I promise I don't say that on every opener. But been hoping to have George on for day one of starting the podcast, so this is honestly pretty monumental for me. And I know he keeps it himself, so pretty grateful that he's joining in on the pod. Welcome, George Parker. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
I know you just told me you came back from training, so freezing over there.
Yeah, it's like -4, mate. So hips are done. My hips are done now.
But yeah, just wanted to check in on how the new year has been for you. Are you are you deep into the training right now, or you took some time off as well?
Yeah, I'm doing dry Jan for the first time in 10 years. So
wow,
I'm doing all right. I'm not shaking yet, but no, yeah, I'm doing all right. Yeah, I had a decent Christmas, and I've had a good 10 days now of training. I'm going to Cleveland on Sunday to play a tournament there. So just getting on with deck and a bit of running and ghosting. So yeah, I feel all right.
What prompted you to do Dredge January?
Bloody hell. a lot of things. It's been, I've needed to do it a long time ago, but yeah, just Christmas is always heavy for me. with my family and stuff like that. So, you know, I'll probably put on 2 or 3 kilos by the end of December, but I've lost it pretty quick because once I get my head in gear and start training, I can lose it pretty quick. But yeah, I didn't feel great, so I just wanted to put in a bit of a shift for the back end of the season.
I see. I mean, who knows? Crack into the top 10 and continue to do the dry the whole year, essentially.
I don't know how long I can keep it going. It's a bit boring, but I'm trying my hardest.
Yeah, first question I had for you was actually how you go about picking your events. You just mentioned that you're doing Cleveland. I was actually looking through the events you played this past year, but I was curious at your point in this point of your career, are you more strategic about which events you want to play? Are you more selective? Is it more just as it comes?
I'm a nightmare, really, mate, with flights and tournaments. Since I was 18, 19, I've really struggled. But it's changed a bit this year because they changed the World Series to top 32. So
really fast.
I've missed a lot of events. I think I missed 3 or 4 that I played last season. So it's just whatever I can get in. But I'm not really keen on going really far away from home at this age, mainly because of funding and stuff. The further you go away, the more expensive it is.
Right.
So yeah, I like going to Qatar. If there's ever a tournament in Qatar, I always go there. So yeah, it's just whatever's there. If I have the chance, I'll probably try and stay in Europe and do the smaller ones, like the 20s and 30Ks and stuff like that, because it's less expense and you can be home quicker. I do a bit of coaching now as well, so you're getting no jet lag and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just whatever comes on the calendar, really.
Was that frustrating when they changed the tiers? I know that it was incredibly confusing at the beginning of the season when they were changing up diamond, platinums, and all that.
Yeah, it's been a big blow for me because I don't think I've been out of the World Series since I got in. Maybe at 21, I've pretty much played all of the big ones in Egypt, Qatar, and I've been over America quite a lot as well. So yeah, it's been a big blow for me. But that small bracket of players, like 35 to 55, normally we were sneaking in like last minute into these events, but we're nowhere near now. So you have to pick and choose your tournaments better, and there's just not a lot on, like the 100Ks in Asia and stuff like that. It's just, for me, it's such a big. I've not got a massive amount of sponsors and stuff like that. I did when I was younger, so it's like a big effort to get all that way, and it's more risk, unless you're tying it in with exhibitions and and you're organised, which I ain't. So it's just a big effort to get there, more risk. So yeah, if I had a choice now of playing the ones, I'd like I said, I'd stick to the smaller ones in Europe if I can, which I have done this season.
I see that you've been training a lot with Joel Macon. I saw the Pat Rooney. So you were training with Pat as well. Do you have a coach at the moment, or are you kind of just training partners here and there? Is that an active choice of yours? I
had coaches in the past, when I was younger, and it all comes down to funding now as well. That kind of stuff. It's I've got a mortgage and that kind of stuff, and your earnings at 50 in the world, if you've not got a lot of sponsors, is not a lot of money. So adding £200 or £300 a month for a coach is not even in my mind at the moment. But yeah, no, not really. No, I learn as much as I can from someone like Joel, who's currently sick, wherever he's in the world. You can get as much from being around good players than you can with a coach. Right. I'm not really buying into any technical things. I think if you look at all of the top 10, they've all got different swings. They're all different players. So I don't think I want to buy too into like one thing. So yeah, it's not really a choice. But yeah, mainly like if I've been behaving and I'm getting on court with good players like Joel, whatever. If I'm getting good hits, yeah. So yeah, coaching wise, yeah, not really. I'm not really buying into one thing. Like I said, like most of the top 10, top 15 are all different players. All different techniques. I don't think any of them hit the ball badly. I think some hit them better than others. But I think the main thing I would probably benefit from would be like a feeder to hit more balls. That kind of stuff, which I've struggled with over the years. But in terms of like buying into a way of playing and stuff like that, I'm not. They're all so different in the top 10. I just think part of that is just you're trying to kid yourself, and you need reassurance for that kind of stuff. There's been a lot of players what have not had coaches and had feeders have been good players. So I'm not saying it wouldn't help. It might help, but it's not for me. I don't think it's the biggest thing. What's going to make me a better player? Having someone shout at me every day.
Have coaches approached you to want to coach you, or is that not something?
Not really. No, I think maybe when I was 21, 22, when I had a good kick from like 60 to like top 30 for a bit, I was probably getting more attention now. But I think it's probably more people understand that I'm just doing my own thing, and I've got my way of doing things. So yeah, certainly not recently. No one's asked me to coach me. No.
Wait, so George, you were talking about lack of sponsors, right? Especially with how these are. It's a lot more. You got to be a lot more careful when you pick these events as well. I know. I think it was back in either the British Open that you kind of mentioned that you're not a part of England squash anymore. If I got that correct.
Yeah.
An interview.
Yeah. They let me go about 6 months ago. Maybe a year ago. I've been on England squash funding since I was young, like 18, 19. So yeah, that was quite a big blow for, in terms of monthly payments, and especially the healthcare was massive. So that was quite a big blow. But when when you're younger and stuff like that, and you don't really realize how good you're getting things. So I didn't realize it was going to be that much of a blow. And especially when I'm in my house now, we took on the mortgage as well because you're on interest only. So my payments went up. So it sort of got hit from both ends. So, and going down in the rankings, I've not gone down massively, but there's a big difference between playing the platinums and being top 30 than, hanging around at 50, 60 in the world and like not really getting seen. So I think it's like a mixture of a few things, with that. So that's probably a big part of it. If I had a lot more funding, then I enjoy playing these events. I enjoy being around better players, especially, when, my mates are there as well. And, I enjoy competing. I do a lot of squash coaching now as well. Not a lot, but it makes you appreciate the playing as well, because you're playing like that World Series level is the top level of the sport. So it makes you appreciate being there more.
Is the funding purely based on rankings? They just immediately cut you if you don't make a certain tier?
I don't think so. England squash. For me, it used to be. I don't know now because it's changing with the Olympic Games and that kind of stuff. But I think it used to be more age and maybe potential. So, and then I think at the top level, I think ranking does matter. With Mohammed and the top boys, and if you're going to get England camps. But I think for a lot of the young juniors, I think they'll put them on funding if they're seeing good, things that they're doing and potential, and if they'll work hard and, if they've got the right mindset. I think that affects your funding more as a young age. But certainly as you get older, like for me now, I'm 20, nearly 29 next year. And I have hovered from, 30 to 50 in the world for 7 or 8 years. So like I can understand them dropping me. It's not, if I was playing very well when I was showing signs of, pushing on, I haven't really. So it's like I sort of respect it. And we've got a deep, backlog of good players now. Mohammed and Marwan here. Like I don't think I'm even top 10 in the UK at the moment. At 50 in the world. So there's a lot of good players about. So I understand why they're funded. I've got nothing against England squash. They did nothing but help me. I've been an absolute nightmare over the years with behaviour and the way I've acted, and they've always supported me. So yeah, I've got. You can only blame yourself in situations like that for not doing more. So, yeah.
I see. Kind of moving away from that, just in terms of reflections, how was your 2024 year in terms of your squash? Where do you feel like your game's at? I know you've had some incredible results, especially in like June, July with the London Classic and also the British Open. Any reflections on that?
It's been a weird change for me because I've just started coaching this year, so I'll probably see it differently. But the back end of last year a lot of it was luck, to be honest, mate. Like, don't get me wrong, I was playing well, but it just sometimes it falls into place, doesn't it? Like, I think I beat August, the Sword in a best of 3, then Ika. Like, I was playing well. I wouldn't say I was playing any better there. I just think I got a half decent draw and pushed on. But I think that's helped my ranking out a lot. Those decent wins towards the end of the season, because I've not done a great amount this year. I got quite ill for like 3 or 4 weeks with like I don't know if it's COVID or some chest problem, but I didn't really get any volume of training in at all. And then I turned up to that Brno 30k and actually played quite well, even though like I could barely breathe. Like I actually played quite well, but I've not really pushed on in these smaller events, which, you know, like Deck's gone from being injured for a year to winning 15s, winning 20s. And I think that's what with the new system you've got to do. You've really got to get to finals or win these smaller events. To me, that's tougher, you know, than, you know, nicking a first round, winning a World Series when you've got nothing to lose, one game to get good points, but then actually win 3 games in a row. And these 30Ks now, I played Deck in the quarters of a 20. Like, and he's, you know, on his day, he's obviously a top 25 player. So it's like, it's a much harder thing to do. And, you know, someone's got to do it. Not everyone can do it. You know, there's not many of these tournaments. So there's only going to be 4 or 5 players push through these smaller events and get through. But I haven't done it. So yeah, I wouldn't say, I think my squash needs a lot of work going forward in my short game, but I'm in good shape, the best shape I've been in a while at the moment in time. And I'm enjoying being fit and not, you know, like panicking on court because I don't think I've done enough and stuff like that. I feel quite confident physically. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the back end of the season. So especially because I ain't had a drink for 3 weeks. So I've lost about 4 kilos.
At your best, where do you think your level's at your best in terms of rankings?
At my very best.
Yeah.
What, now or has been or like
right now?
I think if I played very well, I could compete with, you know, 25 to 35 in the world, if not win. I'm not unrealistic. Like, you know, I've never really been a top 15 player, even when I've been playing at my very best. You know, I've pushed players, like I've pushed Paul, but the difference is, this is what I don't get about certain people. Like, they can nick a game and like push good players and like think that you're improving, but like, to me, sport is getting over the line. Like, it doesn't matter if like I nicked a game off or like, you know, it shows you could compete at a certain level, but winning is completely different. So I think the people I could generally beat are probably anywhere from 25 to 35 would be at my best. Like, I've beaten a few top 20 players, but a handful. So physically, like I could compete. Like I've never really struggled if I'm in the right mindset and doing a lot. I can get away with a lot because I'm a good athlete. So I can always half be in the mix, you know, with top players. I'm never going to get properly rolled over unless I get completely outplayed. So I think that's helped me a lot, but I've never really pushed on to that level where, you know, I think Pat did it a bit more. He got to 18 in the world and he beat a few top 10 players. I think that was the level I wanted to try and push on, but it sort of never really got there. There's loads of different reasons for that, but there's no reason why I can't. You know, like, I think I say I'm old, but 28 is not that old. Like,
not that old. Yeah.
So I'm like I said, I'm moving probably the best I've moved. I'm still physically, I don't see no signs of dropping off physically at the moment, but I know as soon as I hit 30 that might change. But
got a short window then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such an honest take. What do you think is the difference between those top 15 versus someone perhaps in 22, hovering around 22, 23?
For me, like, I've done this a few times. Like, it's basically, I think if you rate every pillar of squash out of 10, if there's 5, physical, technical, mental, I think most of the top 10 and most of the top 15 don't have a major weakness. So I don't think I could pull. You could nitpick and say one of the top 10 might be a 6 or 7 out of 10, but everything else is a 9 or 10. Physically, lifestyle, you know, technique. So I think as you go down the rankings, you start to see major weaknesses. You know, someone at 50 in the world has to have a major weakness. You know, if you've been playing for a long time, unless you're a junior coming up, yeah, you've got to have something at a number 2 or 3. Like, for me, it's probably mentally and lifestyle's let me down a lot. That's probably down low, but physically I might be at a 9 or 10 when I'm at my best. But you need to bring them all together. And I just think people, you know, look at Joel. Like, Joel technically wasn't the most gifted as he's going up, and that was probably at a 4 or 5. But now he hits a short ball as good as most top 10 players because he's worked it. So he's got that pillar up. Physically, he's a 10. So if you average it out, I just think on the like all round, their game's better. And I think you see that creep in a lot more as you go 30, 40, 50 in the world. You see some people what at 80, 90 in the world what have got, you know, some weaknesses as, you know, bad as club players. So that's the reality of it, really. The better players in the world don't let their ego get in the way. They're honest with themselves. And I think they know what they need to work on. You've got to have a bit of stubbornness. You need to be confident, but there's a line of being overconfident and not addressing what you're bad at. So I just think the top players probably, their lifestyle so much better and they're fully into, you know, being the best player they can. So they're always looking at what they need to bump up, you know, what is their weakness, but they're not forgetting why they're good at their strengths as well. So...
Speaking of lifestyle, I'm sure that's it's a pretty psychotic lifestyle you have to live, especially if you're in the top 10, being that dialed in.
Me, mate. If you lived the day with me, you'd never speak to me again.
Was there a moment in your career that you were that locked in terms of the lifestyle aspect of it?
Yeah. I'll go through phases. Like, I'm pretty locked in now, really. Like, I'm thinking about left leg ghosting in my sleep at the moment. Every time I go to bed, I can't get out of my head. I'm all or nothing, really. And sometimes I get too intense and, you know, that starts to bring aggression out of me. But yeah, when I was 20, I was locked in when I was a junior massively. I didn't have anything else for like 17, 18. I've got a bit of I think I got a ban at 19 when I didn't play for like 6 months to a year, which obviously I lost a lot of time there. And then at 21, I think when I went through that phase of, there was quite a lot of 10Ks in England that you could play. So it's like sort of like 50 to 100 in the world level. And I started to win a few of them, and I started to realise that I was sort of pushing getting into these World Series. It was a time where you could qualify, so you had to qualify to get into the main events. And I think once I showed a bit of, you know, when you're young, you're 20, 21, people think you have potential, you do yourself. And then you start competing with like 30 to 50 in the world players. That sort of gave me a bit of a kick, like, oof, like I can mix it here. So I think for a year or two, I was very, very dialed in. But like sometimes if you can't take a step back, like with me, I'm so into certain things, like I get obsessed with certain stuff like running or, you know, whatever it is. And like if you get so burrowed into one thing, it can be good for a certain amount of time, but you could become quite one-dimensional. And I think that's what I struggled with. Every time I've been dialed in, I can't sort of take a step back and look, you know, assess the whole thing. It's like so into one thing. And it become a super strength. But like I said, the top players aren't bothered about that. If you're good at one thing, they're not bothered. They're so much more intelligent, and with court time, they don't really care if you're super fit, but you can't hit a forehand drop, or they don't care if you've got amazing short work, but you can't lunge. Like, they're not bothered about that. So I think that was it. But yeah, generally I'll go through phases of, I always love squash. And I think coaching recently, you know, has made me find more of a balance for appreciating, you know, I used to get a bit, you know, feel sorry for myself, you know, losing money, you know, losing stress, all this kind of stuff. But if you actually look at the lifestyle of what you can do, like, I can wake up when I want most of the time. You know, I can book a flight. I can compete. I can be around good athletes. Like, you know, a lot of my friends and certain stuff like that have to get up at 5 a.m, and they're good athletes as well. They could have, you know, a couple of my best mates are like pro boxers. They have to get up at 5 a.m, do 12 hours work, and then go box at night. So I think, so like I think I definitely appreciate it more now if you take a step back, for sure.
Well, that's incredibly candid of it. Speaking of levels of different players, and also George, you've obviously had the different opportunity to play players in the era of what, like Nick Matthew, James Willstrop, Greg, Ramy, and now, you know, there's been a handover and torch of, you know, there's Asal, there's Farag, obviously Paul Cole and Joel Macon the top of the game right now. Do you feel like the game has changed quite significantly? And another question I had for you is, do you feel like your game has had to adapt over the years?
For me, let me think. When I was a junior, like, from watching squash over the years, like, I think there's no denying. I know a lot of people say the pace hasn't gone up, all that kind of stuff. For me, the Egyptians have, over the last 10 years, have just completely changed the way the game's played, like the intensity, where most of the points are being played, front corners, volleying. I think, for me, I've seen the intensity go up a lot and the attacking side. When I was coming through in the 5Ks in England, there was a lot of English players around there, though, to be fair. The Egyptians weren't really, when I was a junior, the Egyptians weren't really coming over at that stage for the 5s and 10s. And there wasn't a massive amount of juniors. There were, Mohammed was at Millfield and stuff, but I didn't really play that many Egyptians. It was all older English players. And for me, the pace there, I was playing at a faster pace than a lot of these lads were then. I think that's probably what got me through it, was my intensity. But especially with the glass court now as well, coming through with the glass court, I just think on the whole, it's just way more attacking and intense. I think it's a more explosive sport, and especially with the review, I think it's not got easier, but with the review, towel wiping, it allows people to, really like get their oxygen back, get out of like a bad situation and go again. So I think the intensity's definitely gone up.
I see. You've dealt with your, fair share of public scrutiny, right? And over the years, whether it be through the bans, do you usually shut out those noises, or has that bothered you throughout your career?
It sort of depends. Like, I don't know, I'll try to be quite honest with myself. Like, there's any situation I've been in has been self-caused, really. So everything I've done, regardless if some, markers sort of have it in for me, they're emotional as well. They're not a robot. They're going to behave like we behave, and that's quite hard to understand when you're the one spending money going to these tournaments and they're retired. But that's the bottom line, is like, they're humans as well. So any situation I've been in has been my own doing. And I used to listen to a few comments when I was young, like full of testosterone and Mr. Angry. Like, I could really find myself going into some people, and I would fly, but it don't bother me now, really, like that kind of stuff. Like, I've sort of changed the way I behave a lot. I'm not as aggressive as I used to be. And watching them moments back on YouTube isn't nice for me either, because you're sitting there on the sofa watching yourself, and people love it. People love that side of me, but I generally don't. I wasn't doing that for attention or, being aggressive. So I wanted views. I was put just in a box full of anger and, emotion and stuff like that. And it's on camera, so you explode. And I don't particularly like the younger generation enjoying that kind of stuff, like with Curious and all these babble. It's not a good thing to be, like, at all. Like, being emotionally weak and having no self-control in those situations is the worst thing you can do. So I don't like the fact that, some young kids think, oh yeah, watch me play and see me smash a racket and stuff 4 or 5 years ago, and think, that's the way they want to behave because it's cool. It's not. Like, I've never wanted to behave like that. It's just I've had issues with self-control over the years. So, but yeah, in terms of comments, like, different things get to me more now. Like, I don't really care. Like, if people want to say they don't know me, don't they? It'd offend me if, my best mates or my old man said you're out of order, then I'd listen. But to someone on YouTube from Kazakhstan, I ain't bothered. Like,
yeah. Fair enough. Also, wanted to ask you about the ban when you were 19. How was that experience? Because that was a 6-month ban, if I got that correct.
I think it was 6 months. Yeah. I got up to about, I think I must have been 19 years old. I got into the top 100. I think I was just top 70, and I don't know if they do it now, but they had that 3 strike system, 3 conduct points or over a season, and you get a ban. But I think that I was already on a suspended ban, so it just built up and built up. And I think basically they tried to make to show people that they would do it, because I was quite a promising young talent, but my behaviour was appalling when I was a kid, really. I don't know really how England squash sort of put up with it, because it weren't the best representing your flag the way I was behaving, smashing rackets. But I think I smashed. That was it. I was playing Cesar Salazar in the British Open I must have qualified, and then at the end, I think it was John Mazzarella. I think I smashed. I think it was the end of the game. So I've had this a few times where like I'm lost and like again self-control, anger, whatever it is. Before I know it, my racket's in half, like it's done. I've not even thought about it. It's on the wall, broken, or on my knee. But he gave me a conduct point after the match, and that was it. It was 6 months. Of not playing really, and I sort of did fall out. I love it at the time because when you're a young kid like that, you think the world's against you, don't you? You think, oh, it's not my problem, not my fault. You know, like I said, everything I've done is, you know, not many other people were doing that in the world at that age. So I take responsibility for it. But yeah, I didn't really pick up a racket. I put on a lot of weight, and I worked. My dad made me go work. So one of my dad's friends is like a tarmacker, like labour work, stuff like that. So I worked. Basically saw how hard it is to earn not a lot of money at labouring level for 3 or 4 months, and waking up at 5:30 in the morning, getting back at 6, just it weren't for me. Like I did it for 2 or 3 months, and I was like, wow, like I can't do that for Monday to Friday, like not earning good money. I suppose you could build your way up, but like I was getting spoke to like a piece of shit, really. Like no one respected me because I didn't know what I was doing. I was an athlete at the time. I was strong, but I don't know how to, tarmac. But it made me respect it, to be fair. And once I had got to the point where I didn't want to keep working like that, I chose, I need to get back into this. And yeah, to me, it was a good decision, really.
I see. You're speaking about, the lack of self-control there when you're earlier in your career. And George, obviously you've had such a stellar junior career. I think that's a lot of people know that. Do you think that type of pressure got to you, especially because of how you were succeeding at such an early age with the sport?
Yeah, I think it probably got to my ego for sure. Yeah, like I said, I didn't know anything else. Like once you're winning tournaments, I was number 1 in England every age group. There was no one from Leicester at the time. Like Simon Herbert's from Leicester now, but he didn't come through in the junior career. So I was the only guy in the East Midlands really had potential. So I think it probably did get to my head, yeah, and my ego. But I think, recently I've been diagnosed with ADHD because my girlfriend and dad, everyone sent me to go private to see it because they're just fed up with the way I'm behaving. Like they weren't far off kicking me out the house. And I think that's got a lot of an explanation for self-control and, being overwhelmed in certain situations. Like I'm not blaming everything on that, like, because you're your own person, but I can definitely see traits in the way I behave now in when I was a kid. I'm on medication now, and since I've been on the medication, it's been way easier to like filter certain stuff for me. Like when I'm on a squash court on live streaming and there's so much going on, I find it so hard to like filter what you need to do, what's correct, how to behave, what shot to hit. I'm just literally all over the place, and one little thing, like all the people I speak to when they watch me like last couple of years, like they find it hard to watch, because they just don't know what's going to happen next. And I think that was obviously a big cause in those situations, especially when you had adrenaline, all that kind of stuff. I think it just heightens it. But I've definitely seen a big change in my thinking, not in my level, nothing to do with my level because that's not changed, but in my brain and the way I take losses has changed since I've been on the medication for sure. I'm still a aggressive guy, really. I'm quite strong and stuff. I'm not going to be mute, but like I can filter. I feel like I've got a bit more of a 2 or 3 seconds head start on whether I do something or not. That's like the self-control. Before it was like I'd do something and then 10 seconds later I wouldn't even know I've done it. So that's sort of filtered out. But yeah, I definitely think being a good player, has got to my ego, for sure.
What do you think of the current England junior system? I know I mentioned earlier about the British juniors, and I know you said you didn't watch it, but it seems like there's a lack of presence on the podium for England squash in the junior level. But do you have any opinions about that, or just in general about England squash for the juniors?
They put that pressure on us, Everyone, when we were younger, we had Nick Matthew, Pete Barker, James Wallstrop. The list goes on and on. Even Simpo, it went down and down. Like the list was so big, and all people were saying, "Oh, we're not filling the gap." Like, I don't know how the coaching staff do it. I don't know about getting more participants. All I know is like, obviously Egyptians have got it right.
Right.
The French are doing well as well. Like they've got it right, but I don't think people need that. The juniors need that pressure. Some people come through later on. You know, some people get to 2015 in the world when they're 27, 28 and they weren't a junior. So I don't really look too far unless you're someone special, like, you know, Mohammed, 30 in the world when he's 18, like beating top 10 players. Like you can look like if you're Asal, everyone looks, but on the whole, you're not gonna. That's one or two players. The rest, I think, you've got to develop. You know, that will come later on. I personally don't know how England squash deal with juniors. I don't know. Like, for me, I had it really good. Like, I was allowed on the England men's squad when I was like 16, 17. So I got to be around, you know, Nick Matthew and these type of guys. And then they put us on an academy squad at like 18, 19. We lived in Manchester. I couldn't fault anything they did, really. Don't know about how you get more numbers out. Like, for me, like, when I played Egyptian League, you know, before COVID, and the clubs there are just full of like good juniors, good players. There's at least 4 or 5 top 10, well, top 20 players at the club. So like in England, you have to drive 2 hours to get to a club what's like Pontefract for me to have good players in, or, you know, an hour to Birmingham. Like it's so spread out, and even then you've probably got one top 30 player. The rest are like nights. So I just think and you know, we're in school a lot more. There's bigger sports, football. Everyone's football mad here. Rugby, like paddles overtake. I just think it's more about the volume of players you're getting through, regardless of the top end coaching from England squash. I don't know how that works, but I just think it's a numbers game. If we had more kids playing and, you know, seeing other good players to look up to, I think we'd have better players. But it ain't like that in England, unfortunately.
I remember during your junior days, I remember watching some videos. I remember you're in the same generation as Diego Elias.
Yeah.
I mean, seeing him cement himself as a top player right now. I was curious to get your take on him when he was a junior and your battles with him.
Don't look like he's changed. Like he was so good then. Yeah, his technique, everything, his smoothness. Like at 17, 18, the way he moved and stuff like that. I don't know if that's taught. I don't know. I don't know what he's done, but I know he's head coach with Jonathan Power, and I can see a lot of resemblance there. But yeah, he's just so good. Like I don't get him in the gym. I don't know. It doesn't really matter, does it? I don't know how fit he is. It doesn't matter. Like I played him a couple of times. I played him in Chicago, and I got quite tight in the first game, or maybe 12-10. But after that, it's always been just like he reads me so well. It doesn't matter how physical I am, up the pace. Like he sort of walks around court, which I find quite hard to play against. Someone where I'm quite an explosive. I don't reserve a lot of energy. I move quite fast, explosive. But for someone like that who just hits ridiculous lines and walks around, I just think, to me, he's probably my favourite player to watch. Like out of the top boys, just his technique and everything. I just think I like smooth players like that because I'm not.
I mean, right now, to talk about youngsters, right now it's Zakaria. I know you've got to play him. Yeah. You're back. And I know Jonah Bryant's coming up the ranks. I don't know if you've had a chance to play him, but he seems...
Not played Jonah, but yeah, he's handy and he's very, very good player. Played Zakaria. I was very impressed with him, actually. Like, I wasn't doing a great amount at the time, but still doesn't matter. The kid's like 17, 18, so I should be physically stronger than him, but very impressed how quick and fit he was for his age and disciplined. He sort of played like he's been on the tour for 10 years already. Like he wasn't junior squash to me, that, and his results obviously showed that. You know, I think he's probably beaten top 20 players already, and he's top 50 or whatever he is. So
right,
yeah, impressed. And Jonah as well. Jonah, like going through and winning 20s and doing what he's doing at that age. He's very talented. I've trained with him once. I've been around him a bit. Yeah, he's a nice lad, but there's no reason why he can't. He's got a good build for squash as well. He's quite lean, strong, so there's no reason why he can't push on. You know, if you're playing at that level at that age, at 18, 19, whatever, there's no reason why he can't be a top 10 player.
George, one of the last questions I wanted to ask you was about the Olympics. I know the Olympics was big news for squash. How are you viewing that in terms of participation / is that something that you hope to be a part of?
I'm not going to say no to anything. Because you know anything can happen, but I think it's probably more for the younger generation. Like I said, Jonah. I think people like Pat as well. I think if I was more in the mix of like playing at my very best level at ranking, I think it'd probably be perfect timing 31. I think I'll be 31 when the Olympics is on. But I think it's going to be good for the sport. I can't see, unless it's a shit show and like it's awful when we get bad views. But I just think any type of build up like that, which we've never had, and like I said, 4 years time, how many younger players are going to come through, and Egyptians what are going to take the game to the next level as well. Hopefully, you know, we can put on a good show. Like for me, I'm hoping I'm still moving well at 31 and still playing. Like I said, I don't know, injuries, anything can happen. But obviously, if I had the chance, of course, I'd love to play. Yeah.
Yeah. Ambitions for this season? Do you have any concrete goals that you wanted to hit on?
I just want to try and, like, if I can, like, obviously perform, enjoy it. But it'd be nice to. I want to try and sort of get back to that ranking where I, like Deck did, get in the top 35, top 30, so I can play World Series again. And you know, it's a different game playing a World Series and having the review, these big venues, the crowds is different to playing in a 20k in some European country. Like it's a different sport. Like you know, and that's what I want to get. I was used to that. You know, once it was the top 48 draw, regardless of the reason, like I was used to getting that 5 or 6 times a year and enjoying it. So if I can try and nick a few wins and get back to that level and squeeze in them, I'll be happy. Like I'm not, you know, going to exaggerate, think, oh yeah, I'm going to be top 8, all this kind of stuff. Like try and pick myself up. It's just unrealistic. Like I don't try and believe in my own bullshit like that, because it don't happen, is it? But for me, realistically, it'd be nice to be competing with top players and having a bit better lifestyle and enjoying it for the last couple of years, you know, until I retire at that World Series level and be in the mix. Because if you're in the mix, anything can happen. Like, you know, everyone, you know, people get worse, you know, people stay stagnant, people improve. Like, but if you're in the mix, at least you've got a chance. And I'm not really in the mix at the moment. I don't want to keep playing the smaller events. I want to be around the top players, really.
Yeah, cool. George, I'm going to transition to the quickfire segment, and then we'll wrap it up here. Start off with the blind rankings. Do you know the blind rankings, or do you want me to explain it? Blind rankings is essentially I'll give you a player name and you rank them without knowing what name is coming next, and I'm giving you 5 names. Just a little fun exercise here. So first name is Nick Matthew.
1 to 5, you're saying, yeah?
Yeah, I'll give you 5 names total.
3.
James Wilstrop.
4.
Gregory Gaultier.
5.
Mohammed El Sharbaghi.
Oh, what do I do here? Who's your last person, or is that cheating?
That's cheating.
Oh, fuck. Fuck it, 2.
Ali Farag.
Wait, there we go. Sam, that knows him anyway.
Yeah, you happy with the rankings, or you want to swap one?
In terms of, nah, yeah. No,
you like it?
As good as Frag stand out for me, but yeah, the rest are pretty
solid. Oh, there you have it. That's George's top 5 there. But moving on to the quickfire. Who do you think's the best ref on tour?
Ref?
Yeah.
Don't even know the names. Don't give it that John Mazzarella. Don't give it him. Everyone his ego. He's only 5'3", but his ego's through the roof. But I don't know. I don't know. Who do they say? Who the guy that pay 40 grand a year to ref? What's his name? Roy Gingell.
Yeah, probably him.
It's got to be him, innit? It's got to be him.
Best dressed player on tour.
Dressed. It ain't me. I don't know. I'll tell you what. My old mate Richie. Do you remember Richie Fallows?
Yeah, I did. He's not doing professional anymore, right?
No,
he's a good junior.
He used to be. He used to scrub up well. I'd say him. Definitely.
How about worst dressed?
Worst dressed. Pat Rooney.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. Any player you'd like to see in the commentators booth? That you think would be good? In the
commentators?
Yeah.
Definitely Joel. Because he'd be. I know he's got sponsors of that, but he sort of says it how it is and pretty realistic on the way it's going. So yeah, definitely Joel. Yeah, probably Pat as well, because he's just.
That's good.
He won't take anything. He's just like the most relaxed guy. So yeah, Pat.
Would you see yourself doing it?
Jesus, no! Like my phone's on 7% now. It's about to die. So
okay, well,
that's unorganised, mate. So no, I can't imagine me saying the right thing at the right time there on live stream. It's not going to happen, is it?
How about best and worst organized tournament of the calendar year?
Worst organised?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you. I don't want to put people out, but I don't know. That London, I've done that London Open a few times, and that's been a bit shocking. That 20k, not putting it down, but that's been a bit unorganised. Like there's been no like mail changing rooms and like making your mark after you've lost and stuff like that. Yeah, I wasn't keen on that.
How about the best one?
Best organised? Well, it's probably got to be. Qatar's always good. I've never had a bad experience with Qatar. Like always, you know, picked up nice hotels. Every event there is good. It's probably on the scale thing. It's got to be TOC, isn't it? Really, like doing that in Grand Central Station and other clubs. It does get a bit messy, but like to organise that in that place, I think they've got to be on it. Final
two. I know you're on like probably 6% now. Most underrated player on tour.
6%.
Most underrated player on tour.
Underrated. I'll probably go Pat.
Pat. It's a good choice, honestly.
Not just because he's my mate, but like I just think he's like he did get to 18 in the world, and I think on his day when he's competing, he compete with top 10 boys. He's obviously the ranking's gone down a bit, but I'll probably say him. It's a weird question. I don't know.
I don't know how you're gonna like this next one then. Most overrated player on tour.
Oh, Jesus Christ! I'm really overrated. Well, this is the question. I can't pick a name for that because if you've got a ranking, you deserve it, regardless of how you got it. Like,
right.
You know, I think some people. I don't want to like. I'm friends with everyone. I'm a nice guy. I'm a really nice guy, so I don't want to have a
that's
with anyone in squash.
No, that's fair.
I don't know. If you've got a ranking, you're there for a reason. That's all I'd say. Like the amount of people I hear say he's overranked, but they're ranked above you. You know, you've got people 50 in the world saying he's overranked, but he's 30 in the world and you're 50. So like, what are you on about? Like, relax. So like, I can't say. I don't think anyone's overrated. The position you're in, you're there for a reason, isn't you?
How about if I were to ask it as one player you don't like playing that much? Maybe it's a style clash.
Well, I didn't like playing the Sal because he absolutely battered me. Like he beat me in about 30 minutes. I didn't enjoy that. Yeah, he was just made me feel like a beginner. Really, the first time I've only played him once, and yeah, I think he was 8 or 9-0 up in the first. I thought I'm getting in the car and going home. So more on the squash level, regardless of all that, you know, bollocks people do with, you know, some matches ain't enjoyable, like with, you know,
right.
blocking and stuff. But in terms of being like beat properly, it was probably it.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up there, folks. George, thanks for tuning in, and also thank you for such an honest conversation there. I appreciate it.
No worries, mate. Thank you for having me. My phone's on 2%, mate.